You've described this as an intelligence failure, but a failure is something that happens accidentally.
None of the intelligence that was coming up talking about the storming of the Capitol, killing members of Congress, or killing my police officers was ever discussed at the conference calls that I was on, at least.
That doesn't seem to make sense at all.
It doesn't make sense. I'm looking at my men and women having their asses handed to them, and my first thought was, fuck it, I will take whatever discipline there is.
Once things got out of control, for 71 minutes, Pelosi refused to allow you to bring in the National Guard. Why don't we have answers?
It doesn't seem like people really want to get to the bottom of it, and it gets worse from there. I had a conference call with the leaders of all the law enforcement. It was a call I coordinated. Not one person on that call talked about any concerns for the intelligence, the attack on the Capitol that we were seeing that was out there. That's what's scary.
This sounds like a setup to me. I'm sorry, it does.
New Jersey State Police beat DC National Guard to the Capitol.
Wait, cops drove from New Jersey before the National Guard could get from the Armory on Capitol Hill to the Capitol. Why isn't this story everywhere?
I have no idea.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. The Democrats, the Biden administration, the mainstream liberal media, including Fox News, is not going to like this, okay? Tucker Carlson dropped a bombshell interview last night with the former captain or chief of police of the Capitol, Stephen Sud, who is giving a bombshell testimony that basically confirms what everybody suspected about January 6th, which is that January 6th was a setup. It was a setup by the powers that be, right? The deep state, along with the Democrats, to frame Trump supporters and President Trump himself in order to stage a riot at the Capitol, a so-called insurrection, something that could have been prevented, should have been prevented, because intelligence officials knew of the potential for violence. There should have been precautions that were put in place. There should have been the National Guard there. There should have been extra police. There should have been the proper measures taken to prevent January 6th from happening. But now we know, we're getting confirmation that that didn't happen, because that's what the Democrats and the deep state wanted. They wanted January 6th to happen. They wanted the so-called insurrection to happen. And all of this stuff is now making sense. So I want to go ahead and play this clip of this bombshell interview that Tucker Carlson is doing after being censored by Fox News, because apparently Fox News scrapped the original interview that he did with the former Capitol Police Chief. And that got leaked, okay, in which, again, he confirmed the same things that he's going to confirm here in this interview. So, Tucker Carlson decided to do the interview again because, again, Tucker Carlson is probably the most important journalist that we have in this country. And I want to play just a few clips of it. I can't play the whole thing. The whole thing is like 55 minutes. I encourage you guys to watch it. But I just want to play some key parts of it, because, again, I think what this guy is saying not only debunks the whole narrative, the establishment narrative around January 6th, but also makes the January 6th Commission seem like a joke. It was a political witch hunt that was not designed to actually get to the bottom of January 6th and why it happened, as much as it was simply an opportunity for Democrats and establishment Republicans to basically frame the president of the United States as the leader of an insurrection. And I'm going to break this interview up in just a couple segments for you guys to understand, I think, the key takeaways. First is the fact that, again, Nancy Pelosi was in on this, okay? Apparently, she denied this man National Guard help, okay, as the Capitol is being overrun, despite her claiming that she was begging for help, and Trump is the person that denied it, right? Which, again, apparently is a lie. And then I'm going to play a clip of him just talking about the general fact that as the police chief, okay, of the Capitol, he was left in the dark about intelligence information suggesting that, hey, we're going to need more help on this day in order to prevent this from getting out of control. Take a look.
They saw the danger that we were in. They saw the lack of response from the president for not sending the National Guard, because we pleaded for him.
Speaker, along with the other congressional leaders gathered in a secure location, urgently calling military and law enforcement to try to end the violent siege.
Congress passed a law. It's 2 U.S. Code 1970. Look it up. Just make sure you look it up before December 22 when they changed it. so what was in effect on the 6th, that requires me to go and get approval for bringing in National Guard or federal assistance in advance. I have to go to the Capitol Police Board and get approval from congressional leadership in advance, like I did on January 3rd. I'm denied twice because of optics and because the intelligence didn't support it. So think about that.
Let me ask you the question, who made that decision? Who denied you?
I was denied by Paul Irving, House Sergeant at Arms, and also Mike Stinger, Senate Sergeant at Arms.
And who do they
On
work,
January 3rd.
Who do they work for?
It would have been working for Pelosi on the House side. That Pelosi was the #1 boss, and then McConnell on the Senate side.
So effectively, Mitch McConnell and Nancy Pelosi shut down your request.
My request was shut down, one, because of optics, which is interesting. You're going to hear that term come up a couple more times. Optics, or the look of the National Guard on the Hill.
You make this call immediately to the House Sergeant at Arms, who reports, Mr. Irving, who reports to Nancy Pelosi. He
Correct.
says, I'll call Pelosi.
He says, I'm running up the chain.
Running up the chain, but that is the chain.
I hear you. I got you. I want to tell you exactly what he said.
So what happens then? Does he get back to you?
So for the next 71 minutes, I make the 32 calls to a number of agencies. 11 of those calls are follow-up calls. And look in the Senate combined report from 2001. They have a great infographic of the call after call after call after call. 11 times I call in the next 71 minutes going, where are we on the approval? Where are we in the approval? Because any minute now, any minute, I'm going to get any minute. Finally at 2:09, 71 minutes later, 2:09, I'm finally given approval. Think about that. 71 minutes later, I immediately call Mike Stinger, say we've got approval. I was so pissed off, I made sure that the watch commander, I'm in the command center, I yelled to John Wisham, the lieutenant, that's my watch commander. I said, John, mark the time as 2:10. I finally got approval for the National Guard. I was that mad.
So what is I just want to pause on this for a minute. That's it's almost unbelievable. So this is an event that Pelosi herself has likened to Pearl Harbor and 9/11, the worst thing that's ever happened on American soil. And she's in charge of allowing the National Guard to come in and respond, but she doesn't for 71 minutes? What is that?
And this gets really convoluted once you get into the response on January 6th and how I was delayed getting resources. You have the United States military, Secretary of Defense or Acting Secretary of Defense Miller and General Milley had both discussed locking down the city of Washington, D.C. because they were so worried about violence at the Capitol on January 6th. On Sunday and Monday, they had been discussing locking down the city, revoking permits on Capitol Hill because of the concern for violence. You know who issues the permits on Capitol Hills for demonstrations? I do. You know who wasn't told? Me. Instead, on January 4th, what does Miller do? He puts out a memo restricting the National Guard from carrying the various weapons, any civil disobedience equipment that would be utilized for the very demonstrations or violence that he sees coming. It just doesn't make any sense.
Wait. So the military says we're so concerned about potential imminent violence that we are considering shutting down the city. But at the very same time, they decide that the National Guard can't adopt an aggressive posture to protect the city.
They're deploying because they're going to be deploying National Guard to assist Washington, D.C. with crowd control at metros and some of the traffic control areas. But they put this out on January 4th, specific to January 5th and 6th. And this direction affected the National Guard in Virginia and Maryland. When I was calling, begging for assistance on January 6th, they weren't allowed to respond at first. You look at Governor Hogan. He did a press conference saying he was begging to respond, and he was being denied by the Pentagon, all because of the memo.
So why?
You begin to wonder why, and especially when you look at things like something that I recently came across. When you talk about the military, General Milley, we're now finding out, and it's not from me. This is from Carol Lenig, investigative reporter with the Washington Post, has found that he was using data miner on his own, coming across intelligence.
Tell us what data miner is.
So data miner is an intelligence platform. It's not something your average citizen would have on their computer. I guess it goes in and does crawling across webs. I'm not really sure how it works.
Yes.
But it's not it's an intelligence platform. He's picking up intelligence talking about killing members of Congress and attacking the United States Capitol. And he's not telling me. He's telling select members of Congress. I mean, Carol Lenig writes about it in her book. That's concerning as hell, because as the chief of police, there's a duty to warn there, and I should be told so I can take the necessary action. I don't know who else he was telling, but he sure wasn't telling me.
Again, what could possibly be the explanation for that?
I'm not really sure. I've done many national special security events, and this was handled differently. No, the intelligence, no jib, no coordination, no discussion in advance. It's almost like they wanted it to be watered down, the intelligence to be watered down for some reason.
Yeah, so you've seen that, you heard that. Now I want to play some clips of the other side of the story, the testimony from Trump, the testimony from Kash Patel about what actually happened that day, what went down, and who was responsible for Capitol Police and calling in the National Guard or denying the National Guard from coming in, because that's what happened.
House oversees the sergeant at arms who, at her direction, has refused to turn over documents and communications related to January 6th. The fact is that Nancy Pelosi bears responsibility as Speaker of the House for leaving the Capitol so vulnerable despite multiple warnings and requests. And now she is responsible for the cover-up of that fact.
It's backed up by writing. Mayor Bowser's written refusal, the communications between the leader of the Capitol Police and their chain of command to the DOD refusing our request to allow National Guardsmen and women to stage on January 4 and 5 before January 6. That's in the timeline. The repeated written request refusals are there, along with the chain of command that the DOD followed.
I knew how large this was going to be because everyone I knew was saying, oh, we're going to be there on the 6th, we're going to be, no matter where you went. I said, I think this is going to be really big. And I asked the Secretary of Defense, I said, I think you should recommend to Nancy Pelosi and to Congress, because they're the ones that control it, I would like to recommend 10,000 National Guardsmen to go and to police the air, just in case. I mean,
did the DOD go to Pelosi?
Yeah, he did. And they turned Chris Miller, who was a great guy and did a great job. He went to them. I didn't do it as an order. I did it as a suggestion. Because remember, they run the police.
Right, in the district.
Pelosi and Schumer run that whole operation. So a lot of people don't know this. They don't like to report it. So they went there. They recommended that I said, only because I knew the size of this crowd was going to be enormous. What you see there was, again, a very small number of people relative to the people that heard the speeches and went home. And I said 10,000 people. And Nancy Pelosi turned it down.
Did you ever ask her why? Did you ever find out?
I didn't ask her why. She'd give
next
me
time I talk to her, I'll ask her.
It would be a good thing. Next time you talk to her, ask
Right.
her. Anybody want to ask her why? But you don't hear that. I mean, I'll bet you most of the people in this audience have never heard that before. So I recommended 10, but I said, do whatever they want. They're running the Capitol. They know what they're doing. And the Capitol Police knew about it, and she knew about it, and they turned it down because they said it didn't look good.
Guys, isn't it strange, right? Isn't it strange that on the alleged darkest day in American history, Democrats don't want to shed any light, any transparency on what actually happened that day and why in the hell was the Capitol left so vulnerable? To me, it sounds like Democrats have blood on their hands, okay, including establishment Republicans as well, too, like Mitch McConnell, who also seem to have some type of say-so over police there and calling a National Guard in and things like that. But I want you guys to understand essentially what is being said here is that military officials, generals, including General Milley, right, they knew that there was a potential threat of violence that was going to happen on January 6th, okay? Allegedly, they knew that there were plans to kill politicians, okay? Allegedly, that there were plans to do that, right? Instead of actually properly preparing for this event, okay, which they normally do, and I'm going to prove you guys that the intelligence community, when there's an actual threat against politicians or what they, are, presenting in the media as a threat towards a politician, they act on it, right? I'm gonna show you guys in a minute. But they knew there was a threat. They knew there would be a huge crowd. They said, nah, we're not gonna actually call in a National Guard, right? Mayor Bowser and Nancy Pelosi went out of their way to deny requests for the National Guard. They left the Capitol Police Chief in the dark, right? They left him in the dark so that he could not properly prepare his men. Okay, he could not have the Capitol Police properly staffed, okay, because they seemed to be understaffed that day, right? They went out of their way to leave the right people in the dark to make sure that the National Guard wasn't called in. When the Capitol Police Chief calls in the National Guard, it takes forever right? It takes forever for them to get there, for there'll be responses to the request, despite the fact that Nancy Pelosi, who's in charge of this stuff, by the way, right? She's in charge of this stuff. According to mainstream liberal media, she's on the phone desperately calling, right? By the way, a documentary has been filmed that day. Just so happens that Nancy Pelosi is filming a documentary with her daughter that day, right? Just so happens, okay? While it also just so happens the FBI agents allegedly were in the crowd of Trump supporters. Some Trump supporters who the FBI swears up and down is not actually FBI, people like cough, cough, Ray Epps, were seen on camera, basically trying to incite the crowd, incite a riot for them to go into the Capitol. Okay, we have it on camera. FBI is not interested in this guy at all, right? But we do know there were FBI agents out there, right? So the intelligence community was fully aware what was happening. Allegedly, they were out there. They knew of the possibility for violence. They went out of their way to keep the Capitol Police Chief in the dark about it, to make sure that he couldn't do anything about it. When he tried to do something about it in the moment, they made sure that the National Guard slow walked their way there, right? Again, allegedly you had police come from New Jersey faster than the National Guard could get there, which is, again, unthinkable, right? It is unthinkable that the National Guard is that slow to respond to what, again, the media and the Democrats are framing as an insurrection at the Capitol, right? A takeover of the Capitol, a takeover of the government. Again, the National Guard really, in my opinion, that's what you have a National Guard for, right? Incidents like that, when somebody's taking over the Capitol, that is what you have a National Guard on standby for, right? If it takes them hours upon hours upon hours to actually get there and to respond, then that kind of defeats the point, right? So I'm just saying, all of this stuff apparently went down that day, and this is not what was uncovered. This is not what was talked about during the so-called January 6th commission. Again, it's amazing, right? It's absolutely amazing, okay? That there's so much transparency around what happened on January 6th, except what actually happened on January 6th and how it was allowed to happen in the first place. Which, again, this is not an excuse for the people who actually went there with the intent on committing acts of violence. Obviously, that's wrong. But, again, we have on camera, people who, were trying to incite people to go into the Capitol, who the FBI seems to not be interested in. We also have on camera Capitol police officers seemingly giving a tour of the Capitol to Trump supporters, some of whom were in there peacefully, who, served jail time, who were arrested, had their rights taken away for getting a peaceful tour sponsored by the Capitol Police of the Capitol. Yeah, we have all these things, okay? What clearly seems to be a setup, right? Because we know how the government, we know how the intelligence community responds when they are presented with an actual threat of violence against politicians, or what they're saying is allegedly an actual threat. Because, again, this fits the narrative, right? This fits the narrative. They went out of way to kill a Trump supporter who allegedly was plotting to assassinate Biden in Utah. Take a look.
The FBI says a Utah man was fatally shot as agents tried to arrest him in connection with threats against President Biden and other Democrats. The criminal complaint listing his alleged violent social media posts and online suggestions that he planned to take action. The FBI moving to arrest him just hours before the president arrives in Utah. Here's ABC's Mola Lenghi.
Tonight, just hours before President Biden's arrival in Utah, the FBI says a Provo man was fatally shot as agents tried to arrest him for threatening to assassinate the president. Authorities say 75-year-old Craig Robertson made credible threats, posting to social media just 3 days ago. "I hear Biden is coming to Utah, digging out my old ghillie suit and cleaning the dust off the M24 sniper rifle. Welcome, buffoon-in-chief." A federal complaint revealing dozens of Robertson's posts, including pictures of an arsenal of weapons, images of Robertson dressed in camouflage clothing, armed with a long-range rifle, and multiple references to killing the president. The FBI says its investigation also uncovered threats against law enforcement and other public officials, including Vice President Kamala Harris, Attorney General Merrick Garland, and California Governor Gavin Newsom. After a months-long investigation, the FBI moving in early this morning.
The tipping point to me was President Biden was coming. He was going to be in close proximity, and this individual looked like he was on a planning path to carry out the attack.
An official tells ABC News the FBI's investigation into Robertson began back in April. The Secret Service was notified in June, and that Robertson was making plans to take physical action. The president was briefed about the deadly incident earlier today, Whit.
All right, Mullah, thank you.
Yeah, so I want you guys to understand. The intelligence community, the FBI, if there's a credible, alleged, right, threat against Joe Biden to assassinate him, okay, they can go out of their way to handle the problem, right? Quick, fast, in a hurry, right? They can go and take the guy out, okay? Allegedly, this is what the guy was plotting, right? However, when there's a mass shooting, they can't seem to stop that from happening. Okay, can't seem to stop that from happening, especially the ones that can be framed against the right. They can be framed against conservatives, Trump supporters, or Republicans, right? Can't seem to stop those, right? Can't seem to stop January 6th. Can't seem to stop January 6th either, even though they had intelligence to suggest that, hey, this is something that can get violent. There are going to be a lot of people here. Maybe we should have more people here, okay? Can't seem to stop it, okay? But they, decided to put FBI agents in the crowd, allegedly. Can't seem to also deal with the threats of violence against Trump when you had celebrities and left-wingers threaten the president of the United States when he was president, Trump. They didn't really care about that too much, okay? But again, when it comes to, a alleged assassination attempt or plot against Joe Biden, they was on it quick, right? They was on it quick. They was able to stop that. Again, it's amazing how that works. You're able to stop that, but you weren't able to stop what allegedly were threats against politicians in D.C. on January 6th. Again, it's just amazing what these people want us to believe, right? To me, it seems that with more evidence that comes out, that January 6th was indeed a setup by the establishment to frame the then President of the United States, President Trump, to try to accuse him of inciting an insurrection when, again, he clearly told those people to march peacefully and to be peaceful. They basically went out of their way to make what was supposed to be a peaceful protest as violent as possible. And again, this was all done at the behest of Democrats and the deep state, right? That's so it seems. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.